Good morning and welcome to the September 14th, 2022 Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:33 a.m. Do you have a motion to, first we're going to go to David about public comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During citizen comment, members of the public may address the subcommittee for up to 3 minutes on issues of interest or concern to them. The open meeting law permits the subcommittee members to listen to the comments, but prohibits members from discussing or acting on the matters presented. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any corrections or changes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Item 2 is for information and discussion. We have with us Assistant Chief Brian Chapman to discuss Phoenix Police Department hiring, recruitment techniques, and attrition update. Welcome, sir.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm here today to provide the subcommittee an update on current staffing, retirement, and resignations, testing, and recruiting efficiencies that we have seen throughout the last year. Just to give you a snapshot of where we are currently, our total staffing, we are at 2603 sworn filled positions, 82 police recruits in the academy. Our patrol staffing is hovering at about just over 1,000 working officers in patrol, with 20 additional in training on the streets and 80 more in a transitional duty assignment, which includes medical, military leave, or accommodated positions.
Yes, sir. Councilman Waring.
Sorry to interrupt your flow, Chief, but Chief Williams was here at a meeting yesterday we had, and I talked about this issue a little bit. She indicated at the time that the situation was getting better, and I'm doing this from memory, but I'm looking at the 2603 and the 1006. That sounds worse than I remember the last time we had one of these briefings. I don't remember the 2603 being so close to the 2500s. And I definitely think the 1006 is down from where I remember it being. So it seems like things are actually getting worse. She kind of characterized it as a positive. Is the positive that there are more recruits in the academy?
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, yes, and I have some additional data throughout the presentation that will illustrate where we are. But to your point specifically, we continue with these numbers fluctuate weekly on a monthly basis with our existing staff, and we're looking at what we have coming in through the door to offset those numbers over the course of the next 6 months to a year.
I mean, and it sounds like we're going to get into this in more depth, but I guess I would just say it sounds like we're still experiencing net losses over the last few months.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, that's correct assessment, although I will say if you look at where we were a year ago in terms of where we are today, we are in a much better position, and next year we'll be back to some, I think, normalized numbers or even a better position than we are today. But I'll be happy to go through the numbers as we go through the presentation. So the slide you currently see is what our retirement and resignations look like broken down month by month through 2022. And you'll see at the very top that total number was 275. We're currently at 196. I don't know if we're going to eclipse 275 or not, because as I mentioned, these numbers do fluctuate. But I do want to mention that our average attrition rate from 2015 to 2019 was 215. So we see an uptick in numbers, but it's not as drastic and off the mark as we have traditionally seen. The challenges have been with hiring enough people to offset those throughout the course of the last year or two. Currently, I would like to explain some of the positive momentum we have. When I was here previously in the springtime, I talked about the importance of building a pipeline and building relationships with our schools, specifically for age groups 14 to 21. getting them involved in our cadet program, which gives them valuable experience and on-hands learning about the police department, with the hope that they will then transition into employment after they graduate high school. When I was here in the springtime, we had 23 people in our cadet program. We currently are at 50 people, which is our max between two people that we have there. So we have done a very good job of reaching out to high schools in the community, attending events on campus, and building that. In addition to that, we recently graduated 8 police assistants from our police assistant program. 3 of those graduates were out of our cadet program. So we see this as a positive as we move towards that pipeline of high school to cadet and then onward. And importantly, the cadet program is not just for sworn police officers. This is for communications bureau. This can be for lab. This can be for crime scene. It can be through a number of professional spots within our organization that does not require them to be in a sworn capacity. So there are a tremendous amount of opportunities for that age group as we go up. We're also working with HR to identify some opportunities to explore scholarships for those students who graduate out of high school and do want to continue their education. As we know, the City of Phoenix does have tuition reimbursement program. Some of people coming from our community don't have the money to pay for those up front, so we're aggressively working with HR and identifying funds so we can provide that benefit to them and they can continue their education as they have gainful employment. In the academy, we have this year started a cadence of every 6 weeks. Last year, we hired a total of 94 people, officers into the academy. This year, by the end of this year, we are going to be at 200. That is a significant increase from where we were a year ago, and a lot of that has to do with the transformation of our Employment Services Bureau, staffing, recruiting appropriately, moving that, embedding it down to the academy, and some of the significant outreach that we have done. I would also be remiss if I did not say that we have seen a significant increase based on the market adjustment that was approved by the council to make Phoenix police officers the highest paid officers in the state of Arizona. We continue to see increased attention and inquiries, not only from in the state of Arizona, but from across the country. To that end, we currently have 15 people in our lateral program that are officers in other areas and other states. Those include New York, LA, Tempe, Chicago, Inglewood, Mesa, Glendale, Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Buckeye, just to name a few. So we are seeing a lot of positive traction and attention based on that market adjustment, and our ability to actively recruit people is evidenced in the numbers that we see coming into our testing process. As I mentioned previously, this is a much better position than we have been, and next year at this time, I suspect we will be in a similar position in an upward trajectory for that. The challenge, Councilman Waring, I would say to your point, with trying to hire a bunch of people in a short amount of time is that we do have to be very strategic with that, because we are several hundred officers down. Even if we had the ability to hire all of those at this time, we have physical limitations at our basic training academy. We can only train so many people at a time. Similarly, when they graduate the academy, we have to build our field training program to accommodate that. So as we continue to build month by month over the course of the next year, we will continue to make those efficiencies and opportunities. So it is a seamless process and not one where we're reacting to a crisis, so to speak. With regard to testing, we've had over 900 people attend our applicant testing year to date. 600 of those have entered the background investigation process through our Employment Services Bureau. In the springtime, I mentioned that we worked with HR to implement an academic waiver for those with an associate's degree or higher, and the reason for that was that part of the success in the applicant testing process is to see if you have the ability to be successful through the academy, which is highly academic. And as a result of that academic waiver, we've seen an 800% increase in degree waiver hires. And importantly, that's hires. We've had tremendously more than that applying. In addition to the degree waiver, we are set to test in smaller venues in throughout Maricopa County and the state over the course of the next 6 months. And we are piloting an oral board test in lieu of a written test. Understanding that not everybody is successful with written tests, we are working closely with HR and have developed a criteria for what that oral board would look like to be able to expand opportunities for people that may not traditionally do well in a testing sequence like we currently have. With respect to the numbers of people that are not successful through our testing process, we see that 91% of the applicants drop out through a background process. And that is a combination of drug history, crimes, self-removal, integrity, or not most qualified. And I'll speak specifically to not most qualified. That means that they have poor histories in driving, financial, or employment history, and or have social media posts that do not align and match the City of Phoenix vision and values.
Assistant Chief, we have a question from Council Waring.
I want to make sure, Chief, I heard it right. Thank you, Chairwoman. So did you say of the people who initially expressed interest, 91% are disqualified kind of right from the get-go? I want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, no, that's not accurate. What is accurate is the people that get into our background process, and those that are eliminated, 91% of those are eliminated through the background process. Not 91% of them are completely eliminated.
Sorry, I heard that, and I just gotcha. Okay,
Thank you for that clarification,
Yeah.
because I also heard it the same way and
Okay,
had a
yeah,
big fat
I was kinda
question mark
shocked.
as well.
Okay, it wasn't just me. I feel even better about that. I'm sure it's our fault, at least speaking for myself, but yes, I'm glad we clarified that for everybody at home too, because that would seem like maybe there's something wrong with the test or something. So, thank you.
No, my apologies.
Please continue.
Okay, next we'll talk about some of the recruiting efficiencies, specifically with new technology and military partnership. And before I get to that, I'll talk about the onboarding of 2 additional recruitment positions that are non-sworn positions through City HR that are going to embed with our recruitment unit down at the Academy. And these positions will specifically develop strategies for onboarding people who are looking for employment through the city, branding, and specific recruitment objectives. Importantly, these positions will report through HR as kind of a concierge model that we are trying to build not only with academic waivers and military partnerships, but having people embedded in our recruitment detail that actually are experts in marketing and recruiting. We think we're going to continue to see efficiencies and benefits as we move forward. Again, another thank you to City Council for the approval of ESOF software, which we have been able to implement in our Employment Services Bureau. This is an incredible efficiency for us because this is a cloud-based HR platform which allows applicants to upload all of their documents. It does automatic send-offs for criminal checks where they had previously lived. And it goes without saying that before this, we were touched with paper at every aspect, manila envelope files. Detectives were actually, I wouldn't say fighting, but the fax machine was really prime territory because we had to fax out requests across the country. So eliminating all of that has been incredibly beneficial. And specifically, I will say that from when an applicant passed the test, it took traditionally 50 to 70 days to provide them a conditional offer of employment. We just completed one in 15 days based on the efficiency with ESOF. So as our numbers in the Employment Services Bureau in terms of detectives that are actually able to do the background investigations continue to shrink, you can see how this efficiency is a game changer for us in terms of being able to process people quicker and more efficiently as we go forward. So it's been very helpful to us as an organization.
Councilman Waring has a question.
Thank you. So I'm chair of the city's Human Trafficking Task Force, and we were talking about this issue at one of our meetings. I think Chief Kurtenbach was presenting. And one of our members, her son, I believe it was, had applied to the city of Phoenix He wanted to be a Phoenix police officer. Never heard back. Wound up going to Glendale. Now, this was a few months ago. I brought it to Chief Kurtenbach attention. I think we lost this fella. It was too late to undo that. Does this help with that? I mean, we don't have any margin for error, so I want to make sure people aren't falling. And it wasn't the only time I'd heard something like that. So, I mean, are the people out there who are applying? I want to make sure that we get back to them, and then you can do the weeding out process. But are we sure that these techniques that we're using will get us, everybody, a fair shake?
So, Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, I've heard those same stories, and I can tell you that in December of last year, I would say some of that had to do with that we had 2 people in our recruiting unit, 2. We now have 5 and a sergeant, and we have been very proactive about contacting people on the front end. The way the process works is that in order to sign up for the test, you sign up through the city ECRIS process. And then the week before testing, we have our recruitment officers call every single person on that list to sign up, to say, you're signed up for the test, is there anything that we can do? We offer test study preps with Dr. Rossi, our academic administrator. We reach out to people after the test that didn't show up to see if there's anything that they missed, or if they had an emergency come up, and we provide them with other options. They can test online, which doesn't require them coming down to the academy, and so I can sit here and tell you that we are in a very different place than we were last year, based on our intentionality with valuing people and their time and reaching out to them. If you're going to take the time to fill out an application, we can pick up the phone call, send you a text message, and make sure that you're going to do everything that you can. The beautiful thing with ESOF, as in previously, before we had ESOF, we had background investigators calling people who were non-responsive. And so if they wouldn't send in their data or their sheets for their employment backgrounds, we were always playing catch up with them. ESOF, the beauty with that is it's on the applicant to upload that. The sooner they upload, the faster they go through the process, and this is something that we explain to them in great detail. And so that has helped the communication, so then the background investigator knows immediately applicant X is ready to move on to the next phase, and it goes from there. So in terms of efficiency, we're tremendously better than we were a year ago.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, Chief, for that explanation, because that's concerning. I think this recruiting new police officers might be the most important thing we're doing at the city, obviously providing water, running the airport, but realistically, all that's going to grind to a halt if we don't have enough officers. So it pains me to hear people who, young people who are really enthusiastic and then just felt like they never heard anything back. It sounds like I wasn't just making one up. I mean, it sounds like you were hearing some of the same things. I mean, these are real people who had real concerns. Can I ask, I think I know on the bottom end, the age limit is 21, right? You have to be 21 or over, is that? But you can apply when you're 20, I assume, but you can't be an officer until you're 21. Am I right about that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, 20 and a half to enter the academy.
Gotcha.
But you can start the hiring process before that.
Yeah, before that. So really, if you're a 20-year-old watching this and you're interested, we're going to do a better job of reaching out to you, making the process as easy as possible. And if you do your part and fill out the appropriate forms and everything online, you said, what, 15 days or something to get somebody up and going? I mean, that's pretty quick. Is there an age limit on the top end? What's the oldest someone can go to the academy?
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, there's not. When I was a basic training lieutenant, we had a gentleman come through who was 59 and a half years old and graduated the academy.
Wow. Okay. Good for him. That sounds hard. But, okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So, we are spending a lot of time and treasure, putting the wraps on the cars and stuff saying, hey, contact us. Where does that go? Does that go to the 5 folks that you were just mentioning? So if you send an email to that, I think there's a phone number on there too, if I recollect. I think that's on all the cars, at least all the ones that I see.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, they are in all the cars, and we have people that actually answer those calls and emails, and it's on a dual front because there's a number of them. If they're signing up through the city, they will call city HR because they're the first point of contact. I will say Henry Guzman, who is recently hired by the city as a recruiter in HR, has been wonderful in terms of the seamless communication where we know for example, where people have passed the online test. That doesn't appear in our world at all. That runs through the city. So there is constant communication about where people are in that system and how we can best contact them. I'll assure you we are highly responsive to people. And if you hear of people not getting calls back, I would appreciate the heads up, because that will not be happening.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Waring. Please continue.
So the next opportunity I want to talk about is SkillBridge, and this is a partnership with the Department of Defense for people transitioning out of the military and into public service. This is a program where the Department of Defense covers the pay and benefits for the affected member up to 180 days. We are currently in process and on the final leg of approval with the Department of Defense to be onboarded with that program. Importantly, this is not just a police department program. There are a number of positions in the city, from IT to heavy equipment operator to public works, that people from the military can onboard through the SkillBridge program. On face value, this could be a cost savings up to $40,000 per hire for somebody going into the police academy, because the military will pay their benefits and wages for that 6-month time frame. This is accomplished through the Arizona Coalition of Military Families, and that organization provides transitional classes for success in transitioning from military life to civilian life, so to speak. There are a number of classes dealing with mental coping skills, financial wellness, transitional readiness. Importantly, members from our employment services are working with the coalition to get certified to not only help teach those classes, but provide additional information and context for onboarding as a City of Phoenix employee. We look forward to getting the consent final approval by the Department of Defense with this military operation, and this will help us focus strategically on specific military bases throughout the country and the world. And I will say that we have done a very good job, I guess, a post-COVID benefit. Our hiring process can be done virtually, completely remote. We do require everybody to come here for at least one physical visit, but anything from our background interviews to we have a physical fitness assessment that can be uploaded to YouTube that is monitored, to our psychological interviews with our doctors that are done remotely across the country now. So we are very efficient in valuing people's time and making sure that they only have to have one trip here to finalize that process. So as I mentioned, that will be probably onboarded completely in the next calendar year, and we'll ramp up for that towards the end of this year. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Chief Chapman. Councilman Waring?
Thank you. What percentage of our force are veterans? Their background.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, I do not know, but I will get that answer for you.
Appreciate it. I just think when you're talking about a seamless transition, I mean, generally speaking, it just seems like you're coming out of the military, you're probably in good enough shape to be a Phoenix police officer. You've been vetted by another organization, all the psych exams and so forth. Maybe they're not exactly the same. It just seems like that would be a natural fit in a way that if you looked at me, maybe physically not what I used to be. So, you wouldn't really have that probably as much of a question. I would think the hit rate of, yep, they can do the job physically would be a lot higher. Anything we can do to I mean, this is great, and anything we can do to, I think, ramp this up even more, I think that would be a natural feeder. There's a fella in Desert Horizon. He left the Marine Corps on Friday, and he was in the academy the following Monday. So that's about as seamless a transition as you can probably get. I might have suggested to him, if I'd been friends with him at the time, maybe take a couple weeks and relax. He didn't, but he's loved the job, and I think he's been on for 18 years now. But more of that would be outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Waring. Questions? So I would like to thank you, Chief Chapman, for this update. I applaud the significant steps that you all have taken to streamline this process. It is so much different than when I first became a councilwoman a little over a year ago. And I can attest that if you hear from somebody that is not hearing back from the police department, who would like to be a police department or be a policeman, Chief Chapman takes that very seriously and will make those contacts. It's important that we value those people's times, and I know you have taken significant steps to do that. I'm also very excited to hear that we have our cadet program fulfilled. That's wonderful. Can you tell me I want to know a little bit more about our preparedness for this ramped up staffing. You touched on it briefly, but if we are doing now classes every 6 weeks, like you said, that impact on the field training officers, are we going to be prepared with enough field training officers to do that training when they get out of the academy?
Madam Chair, in short answer, yes. We have been working with Assistant Chief Conley in the Patrol Division. We currently have 2 field training programs, one in the Mountain View Precinct and one in the South Mountain Precinct. We just added positions to there's 2 squads in each precinct, so we added to those, and then by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, we will be onboarding a 3rd precinct based on need, and that will be in the Desert Horizon Precinct. So by the beginning of the year, we will have those positions identified. Again, it's a little bit of playing chess with those positions to make sure that we have those other areas covered, but we are planning for that appropriately.
Wonderful. In addition, I want to, given my education background, would like to commend you all for acknowledging that not everybody is successful at that written test, and that we are looking at ways to still maintain our high bar on the type of person we want to have, but knowing that everybody is different, and success, we can still have a police officer be successful that maybe doesn't do so great at a written test. So that is awesome. All right, if there are no other questions, Councilman Waring.
Sorry, I forgot I had a couple from earlier. So first, so what Chief Williams said yesterday, positive. If you looked at these numbers, probably look at them either way. You're saying the trend is good and that next year, we might be in a much better place. I guess if I were just in a vacuum watching this, I guess I would say, is it because most of the people who can retire have retired or are in the process of retiring, and these new folks won't be retiring for 20 years or 25 years? Is that sort of why the trend, even though it continues to go down, at some point we're going to reach the point where it goes back up, and people have been retained because of the pay increase. People have been incentivized to stay. It sounded like I think you said that's been helping as well.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, can you ask the question one more time? But yes, to your last point, the retention aspect of retention bonuses and then the market adjustment has definitely helped our attrition rate with respect to current employees not leaving in droves like had been previously seen.
I guess the question was more, is what I'm saying accurate? At some point here, we're going to reach the point where the people who want to retire have retired. We're still bringing in new recruits to replace them. Those new recruits aren't going to be retiring for 20 to 25 years. So we're going to go from an older force to a younger force, and then this retirement issue, there won't be so much attrition. And additionally, we've slowed the attrition with the use of the pay increase. Is that, if I had to summarize what you just said and I want to put a positive spin on it in your presentation, is that a fair analysis?
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, fair analysis. I would just say objectively, we are a little more top-heavy than we are green on the bottom right now. If you recall, we did not hire for about a 6-year stretch, which has impacted that significantly for us. So we have a number of our officers who are retirement eligible, but are not retiring, and then we're going to continue to feed the machine, so to speak, through these processes.
And then you did talk about the academy and so forth, and sort of at some point we can't handle everybody coming through all at one time. What is the max that we could run through at one time?
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, we traditionally have run about 300 people a year through the the training academy. And we're on a cadence now where next year, with every 6 weeks, we're looking about 30 in a class, 25 to 30 a class. We'll be back to where we have traditionally been. Outside of making classes on weekends or on second shift, there are physical capacity issues that we're confined by.
So about 300 is about it, and we were hitting that, I think, in 2019, maybe even a little over, and then it dropped off precipitously in 2020 and 21, and now we're seeing an uptick again. So really, for the long term, it would be about 3 years where we were really short, and in conjunction with a lot of people retiring for whatever reasons.
Madam Chair, Councilman Waring, that's accurate. I mean, this will be a couple-year process to get back to where we were, and importantly, it was a couple-year process to get where we are. So,
yeah, I mean, my concern is this something that's never going to be fixable when you look at the precipitous drop? But maybe there's a floor. Perhaps we've even come close to reaching the floor, and then we'll bounce back up. And I think that's what you're projecting. I really hope you're right.
We do too. Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation and the work you've been doing. I think I'm very encouraged that the projection is positive for 2023, and I think it just shows that all of the work that's been done this past year is working. And plotting the Skills Bridge program, I think it looks phenomenal with tremendous benefits to the city. I was wondering, you didn't touch too much on it today, but in the past we've spoken about proactive efforts to recruit more women, for example, more college-educated individuals, maybe more, people of color. Is there any new data or information you can share on any of those programs? Because I think diversifying our force is also incredibly important.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Ansari, I can't speak to exactly those numbers currently in front of me, but I can give you a snapshot of just kind of what our upcoming recruiting events are targeting these demographics. ASU Law Enforcement Experience, Yuma Air Station, DBACS Game, Arizona Black Rodeo, Faith in Blue, Franklin Police and Fire Community Event, Hispanic Advisory Board, Stand Up for Veterans, GCU Meet and Greet, Arizona Christian University Job Fair, Downtown Photos, Mountain Park Community Church Event, and September Fest. So there's that's just a snapshot of what we are physically doing in terms of going out in the community over the next couple of weeks. In addition to that, we have a very proactive social media campaign directed at a variety of those demographics. If you've heard about the 30 for 30 program that the city of Phoenix is on, it's trying to get 30% of the workforce to be female or sworn officers by 2030. We're involved with that process as well, and that's a nationwide concept that I think you'll probably hear more about as we go on over the course of the next year. So it's multifaceted in many areas that we're trying to impact really any and every demographic possible.
That's I did not know about the 30 by 2030. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what percentage we are at now with female?
Madam Chair, Councilwoman, not off the top of my head. If memory serves me correctly, I think we're about 14%.
Okay.
But I'll double check those numbers for you.
Okay, that's
Madam
definitely
Chair,
something I would like to focus on. Oh,
That is correct. I just happen to know that data. It is
Okay.
14% currently.
okay, great. Well, that's something I would definitely like to focus more on moving forward as well, making sure that I think we could probably work towards achieving that 30% goal earlier than 2030. So just moving forward, I think if there's anything we can do or partnerships nationwide we could look at, or any programs that other departments may have across the country that focus specifically on working on the gender equality piece, I think that would be valuable to the city of Phoenix. Thank you.
Might be a good idea to add that too in a future agenda item. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Chief. Do appreciate your time this morning and the information. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3, Angels on Patrol. And for that, we have Assistant Chief Sean Connolly. And I apologize, is it Melinda Cadena? Wonderful. Thank you so much for both joining us this morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. We also have a very distinguished guest, Jackie McConnell, who's sitting to my right.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us also, Jackie.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without Jackie. I'm incredibly honored to be able to sit between these two amazing women who have added tremendous value to the city and the police department. So we come before you to have a discussion and provide some information related to Angels on Patrol. I think we all realize that our city and this police department is at its best when it's collaborating with community on missions and endeavors that add value to some of our most vulnerable at times. We know that we are in the process, in the business of trying to share and shift responsibility in the policing world to things and entities within our community or society that are better equipped to handle that, and this is what Angels on Patrol does. Before I hand it over to them, just a little snapshot for us. So in so many nights in this city, our police officers go out and do amazing work. On the back ends of that work, there's not an arrest. And what happens is there is a person that is in need. And so where does that police officer look at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning for that help and that connectivity to resources, housing, financial support? That's what Angels on Patrol does. And so I just want to make sure that Jackie and Melinda understand that we treasure and value the relationships. I'll hand this off to Jackie and let her share a little bit more about what Angels does.
So first of all, Madam Chair and council members, the Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee, thank you very much for having us here today, for taking the time to allow us to share our story with you and let you know a little bit more about Angels on Patrol. I want to specifically acknowledge Assistant Chief Conley. He is extremely busy, as you know, as an Assistant Police Chief of the Phoenix Police Department, yet he takes the time to serve on our board. When I reached out to him and I asked him to serve on our board, he didn't hesitate. He could have said, no, I'm too busy. He didn't. He has served us honorably, and I very much appreciate his time. Melinda Cadena, who's sitting over here to my left, is our executive director. She is the boots on the ground. She is the face for Angels on Patrol here in the Phoenix Valley, and I also very much appreciate her. As the assistant chief said, I am Jackie McConnell. I honorably retired as a lieutenant from the Phoenix Police Department in 2014 after serving 20 plus years. It was an amazing career, a ton of memories. I was honored to serve the members here and the citizens of the city of Phoenix. In about 2003, I went on an incident as a sergeant. We received a call of some boys who were in cages. Oftentimes, as an officer, you receive a call and you're like, nah, that's not what it's going to be when I get there. Well, in this case, it was. We got there and we were standing at the door. I was standing at the door. My officers had gone into the house and they were like, hey, boss, you got to come in and see this. I can still see the picture in my brain to this day. We walked into that room and we saw the 2 5-year-old twins who were in their cages. Their cribs had been constructed into fully enclosed cages, and they shared their room with their 8-year-old brother. So we removed those boys from the home. They were in CPS care for a while, went to a foster home. The foster home, who were amazing people, eventually adopted them. I'm still in contact with them. They call me their tia or their aunt. They're amazing young boys, and again, with a family who raised them, and just amazing parents. Through that and so many other incidences that I came across, I had the desire, like many officers, to help these individuals that we come across during the course of our duties to assist them further past that initial crisis, because so many people that we come across need a hand up. And so kind of through those experiences that I had in 2009, I founded Angels on Patrol. And Angels on Patrol, I wanted to design something that could provide an immediate response, not in a week, not in a day, an immediate response to officers that were out on the street, dipping into their own pockets to help people out in the street. The mission of Angels on Patrol currently, as you see here, is to provide officer-initiated support to community members in times of crisis. The key to that is it's officer-initiated. Every individual that we help is because a police officer has taken the time to submit a request to us, which is an easy process. Again, it was designed, no red tape, easy process, take 5 to 7 minutes, fill out a request, and Angels on Patrol is there to assist. Our vision, to support law enforcement efforts by enhancing the quality of life for the community. So through this mission, through this vision of Angels on Patrol that started in 2009, We have helped now, to date, approximately 19,000 lives in the Phoenix Valley. We currently serve 14 departments. We started with Phoenix. We have since expanded. So approximately 18,870 lives have been impacted because of law enforcement officers that serve this community, who care, who have heart, who take the extra time to reach out and provide assistance for those community members that they come into contact with. So who are the Angels on Patrol? Why is it called Angels on Patrol? Well, the officers that are out there serving your community are the angels to those that they come across, that they are willing to provide that hand up, again, just by taking a few extra minutes. And there are so many officers that do that every day, which is why we've been able to impact the number of lives that we've been able to impact. Because again, that's the only way that we get involved, is by an officer submitting a request to us. So again, officers utilize Angels on Patrol for that immediate assistance. We are there 24/7, 365. We are a stopgap. So we do not provide long-term resources per se, but what we do is we step in where there's a gap. We provide the assistance in that gap. We work with other resources, and we help people transition into those longer-term resources. The programs that we have include our crisis response program, our youth enrichment program, which is also extremely important, and our after hours program, which provides 24/7, 365 access to our resources for the agencies that we serve. So from this point on, I'm going to turn it over to Melinda Cadena, who, like I said, is the boots on the ground. She is the face of AOP here in the Valley. She is amazing. And she's going to provide you with a little bit more information so that you can even have a better in-depth understanding of Angels on Patrol. Thank you very much for having me here today. I'm honored.
Madam Chair, members of the council, my privilege is now to paint a bigger picture of how we're providing those services. And like Jackie mentioned, the crisis response program, the goal is to move families from crisis to stability and empowerment. But what does that mean, right? A crisis to you can be different from what a crisis, would be for you. And we put pictures. The best way to picture what we're doing is to tell the story of who the officers are helping. If you see there the picture of those 3 little girls, it's a family they had 6 children, 1 in the womb. The father lost his job, so it was a stay-at-home mom with her children. He lost his job. They lost their house. They used their savings to stay into a hotel room. Well, that got depleted. The hotel room wanted to trespass them, so they called the police because they had nowhere to go. The detective gets there, and he talks to the family just to learn a little bit more about the situation that they find themselves in. He calls me and he says, Melinda, I'm here doing my job. I have to trespass this family, but I have a heart. They have nowhere to go, and they have no money. They have no other options. What can we do? And that's what we see daily when officers are encountering a crisis and they want to go above and beyond that call. So for this family, we were able to book another hotel room and connect them to shelters. There's so many wonderful resources that the city of Phoenix offers, but there is a wait, and there is, you have to call, you have to make an appointment, you have to qualify. The families that officers are encountering, they need something immediately. And officers can't just drive away knowing that they're leaving someone behind, so they want to do more. So thankfully, we had them in a hotel room for about a week until they were able to get into a family shelter. They got the resources that they needed. The mom, who was 6 months pregnant, because she already called an adoption agency, because she told me that I can't even take care of these children that I have now, so now I'm giving this child up for adoption. And thanks to that detective and all the work that everyone did, the mom was able to keep her child. So just by going to the shelter, getting connected, and then they went to another shelter where they were able to help with housing, long-term housing. So that's just a wonderful success that we see with the crisis response. And again, it's just depends on what officers encounter. It's something where an officer encounter a need 24/7. And one of the wonderful things that Chief Conley helped us pilot was the after-hours program, because a crisis does not occur Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They are happening 24/7. And officers that are answering those calls at 2 in the morning, most of them are for domestic violence, an officer would have to reach into their own pocket because all the resources are closed. So what we did is we have a prepaid Visa card at every police precinct in Phoenix. So now when an officer encounters, they go on call and they go on call for strangulation. the suspect has fled, but the victim is still vulnerable because, again, the shelters are closed, and they can't just leave them there. Well, many times when we weren't around, they would just pay for it themselves and put them into a hotel room. But what they have the option now is they'll put the request in, that we will see it the next day. They'll go to their precinct, pick up that prepaid Visa card, take the victim to a safe location. So they'll pay for the hotel room. If they leave with the clothes on their back, they'll buy them clothing at Walmart. They'll go and buy them food. So they'll stabilize that crisis until we're able to take over the next morning. And one of the wonderful things with the After-Hours program is at first we started just at 6:20 because we wanted to pilot and just to see how this was, how our vision was going to be. And now I'm just so proud to say that we're at every police precinct now. And out of all the requests this year that we received from Phoenix, 44 have been just through the After-Hours program. So it's an amazing program that we see that it continues to grow. Crisis, so we have a little bit of stats there that you see. The most requests that we get are for homeless and then also domestic violence. Before, domestic violence used to be our highest amount of requests that we would receive, but now with just the economy and things, how the past few years, the shift has been to officers giving us a call because they are encountering newborn babies living behind a dumpster, families that are just on the streets. And again, they have a hard time just driving away and just telling them to call 211, but they want to make sure that they're connected somewhere and they're provided resources. As Jackie spoke on, we do work with crisis, but officers really care about their community. And that's why we also support them through the Youth Enrichment Program. And this is when, more ideally is when school resource officers see a need in their school and they want to start a leadership program, or they want to do, just something to help those children at the school. So we get a lot of requests from school resource officers. For example, it could be something as simple as, last week we got a request because a school resource officer was helping with the schools when they were pick up and drop off. And he noticed that there was a family that would come, and the mom, and then there was 2 kids that were just, always walking around in the back of the van. Well, the school resource officer stopped the mom and said, "Do you have car seats?" Like, he had that instinct to know, like, this is not right. And she said, "No, I'm a single mom. I don't have the means to provide car seats for my family." Well, he put the request in, and we provided 2 car seats. That seems simple, but that potentially could have saved those kids' lives. What if they were in a crash? So that was just $200, and that need was immediately met. Another wonderful thing that we do is, there was another request that came in that officers got called out because there was kids that were throwing rocks at passing cars at an apartment complex. Well, the officers went out there, they talked to the kids, and they learned that the kids had no sports equipment, they were bored, they had nothing to do, so they were getting into trouble. And the officers put the request in, and we got them sports equipment. And we went to go deliver the sports equipment. It was just the most beautiful thing because one of the little boys said, like, "How long do I get to play with this?" And the officer turned to him and said, "You get to keep it." And just the glow that came from that is just amazing. And that's just a simple fact. Of course, the officer could have just driven away again and said, "Well, don't do that again." But he wanted to make sure that the need was met. In front of you, I'd like to share a few of our overall numbers. Back in 2010, when the organization was just founded, we received 7 requests from the city of Phoenix. Last year, we received 324 requests because we are serving 13 police departments now. But out of those 324, 189 came just from the city of Phoenix, and we were able to assist 772 Phoenix residents last year. To date, we have received 263 requests, but 143 have been received from the city of Phoenix, and we have assisted 361 Phoenix residents. And just this year alone, we've helped by paying $32,000 have been assisted with Phoenix residents just by request from police officers. And I just think that's tremendous to note because that's 361 residents that were assisted, when they thought many times they were going to be in trouble or something happened, but the officer just went above and beyond to help them. I did mention that when Jackie founded AOP, we just started in Phoenix, and now we are in 13 different police departments. But the number one department that puts requests in is the city of Phoenix. And our goal is to be statewide and nationwide. And to date, we have met the goal of never declining a request. Jackie did touch a little bit about our unique impact, but Angels on Patrol is super unique because we are helping the community, but a community member cannot just put a request in or give us a call. Our mission is to help that officer when they're wanting to help the community member. We're 100% law enforcement vetted, and our assistant is broad. When people ask what Angels on Patrol is, it's sometimes very difficult to explain because a food bank, you know what a food bank does. They just meet that one need. But with us, it depends on what an officer encounters. It could be food, clothing. We receive requests where an officer rescues a sex trafficking victim. It's car seats. So the range is endless. It really just depends on what the officer encounters and how they want to assist. And we have not seen another nonprofit that does this. I know Jackie and I have looked statewide, nationwide. There are many, many nonprofits and even many nonprofits that help law enforcement, but we are the only one that helps the on-duty officer by avoiding them having to reach into their own pocket or, again, driving away wishing that they could do more. And these are just some pictures of people that we've helped. Just one more example, like if you see the little girl on the top holding her little stuffed animal, the mom met someone online. He flew her and the daughter out, and within a week, he became abusive. They had nowhere to go, so thankfully she called the police, and the officer asked us to fly them back home. That's, again, simple solution for a big problem, and we're just so thankful that we're there to be able to help the community through police officers. And many people do usually ask this is just how we receive funding. We depend on the community, and we write grants, and we have monthly donors.
One thing I want to touch on real quick, if you notice from these stories, there's so many things that we do. There's pretty much nothing that we don't assist with. One of our primary things lately, on I believe it was Saturday night, we received 4 requests overnight. All 4 of those had to do with domestic violence. If it was not for Angels on Patrol stepping in, these victims of domestic violence and their children would be either going back to the abuser or they would be homeless. And that's huge because we are also helping prevent homelessness by being able to provide that stopgap of being able to provide lodging for victims before they can get into longer-term resources. Again, just to conclude this, thank you for having us here today. I am honored. I very appreciate you having us here, Madam Chair, and I know your previous support for Angels on Patrol council members. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation, council members. Councilwoman Ansari.
Yeah, I just have a question. How do officers know about the Angel program, and are they regularly encouraged to participate? I mean, how does that work?
Officers do know about the program. We do go to briefings, and more recently we are going to the trainings, so we're able to educate officers. And it's funny because even when officers learn about us, they tell me, it's too good to be true. What do you mean? I'm asking you to buy someone a flight and you're going to do it? It's like, yeah, that's what we do. So we do take time to educate officers, and a lot of it is a lot of word of mouth.
Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the work that you do. It's really, really wonderful to hear about all of it. I'm very curious. You gave some wonderful stories. You talked about how issues around homelessness is now your top request for support. What are some examples of ways you've gotten involved in that situation? And I'm wondering how closely you work, if at all, with some of our providers and all of the outreach teams that the City of Phoenix supports financially to work with the unsheltered population.
We work with them by we partner with them. So when we receive a request for a homeless family, we are able to direct them to all the different resources, because many times people just assume that if you're homeless, you know that there's resources out there. But many families don't, because it's their first time being homeless. So we do direct them to the Family Housing Hub, we direct them to 211, and we do have many partnerships with the different the shelters in the valley as well.
Okay, so I assume there's been examples of times where maybe you've heard about a family needing somewhere to go for the night and you've been able to get them into a safe space?
You mean without an officer being involved?
No, I guess with an officer.
Yes, so what we do is, it's a bridge to service. So many times what we do, an officer encounters a family that is homeless, we'll put them into a hotel room, that will buy them some time, that way they can have a phone available, and we'll provide them those resources, that way they can contact them. So we're just trying to bridge them to that long-term service.
Got it. And then just out of curiosity, you talked about monthly donors, what is the funding model for this? I imagine if all officers were well aware of this, your request would be through the roof, and that could be quite expensive. So I'm wondering what support you get.
So depending on how much, because we write grants, but we just don't know how many we're going to be honored. So we really look at the next year, and it depends on how much budget we get, then that's how much we can help. So right now we spend about $500 per family. And years prior when, we used to help $1,000. So it really just fluctuates depending on what's awarded.
And I'm going to give a plug for that. So we do put in for grants. We have foundations that have supported us historically, but we are always looking for an increase in monthly donors because there are so many amazing nonprofits out there, right? So all nonprofits are always looking for increased revenue funds. And so, we are always working to expand like our monthly donors as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you both for being here. I know, Jackie, you traveled, and we are honored to have you here, and thank you for your service to our police department and then to our greater community through this program. You gave me both goosebumps and brought me to tears with your stories, so I can't applaud you both enough for your work, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, and I do have, I know that I skipped something. Now that we're back in person, I'm a little off my game here. So we have public comments on item 3. Do we have any? No. Okay, and then thank you so much for being here. And then were there any public comments for item 2? One in person or virtual? One in person. Can we call that person to the microphone, please?
Our next speaker from Upper Council Chamber is Caleb Scott. Our next speaker is Caleb Scott.
Madam Chair, it appears that Caleb may have left the chambers.
Apologize for that. Thank you for the reminder. All right, so now we are going to move on to agenda item 4. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We have interviews of judicial candidates. There are currently 2 vacant seats on the Phoenix Municipal Court. The Public Safety and Justice Committee will be interviewing 6 candidates recommended by the Judicial Selection Advisory Board. Members of the subcommittee will ask each candidate 1 question. The candidates will be required to limit their responses to 2 minutes for each question, and each candidate will be asked the same questions. During the individual interviews, the other 5 candidates will be sequestered without audio or visual to the interviews occurring in council chambers. We are looking forward to hearing from each of the 6 candidates. Once the interviews are complete, we will open the meeting for public comment. Following public comment, the members of the subcommittee will convene an executive session for deliberations. After executive session, members of the subcommittee will reconvene an open session to recommend 2 individuals to the full city council for appointment as judges of the municipal court. Thank you again to the candidates for their interest in serving as a municipal court judge. We begin our interviews today with candidate Alexander Benezra. Sorry, I apologize. I should have practiced names ahead of time. You can correct me once you sit down.
Good morning, Madam Chair and fellow members of the committee. Madam Chair, there's no correcting, you pronounced my name perfect. Alex Ben Ezra.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity today, and it's an honor to be in this process.
Wonderful. So we'll start with Councilwoman Ansari.
Okay, good morning. My question for you is around personal and professional accomplishments. So we know that obviously being a judge requires maturity and wisdom. What have you done both personally and professionally that has prepared you to become a municipal court judge?
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Councilwoman Ansari, professionally, my career has been about public service, and for the last 5 years I've been an employee with the City of Phoenix Public Defender's Office. In that time, I have worked heavily in the behavioral health court, in the suspended license court, and trying to get a homeless court started within the Phoenix Municipal Court. We currently take part in the Maricopa County Regional Homeless Court, and I work in that, where we connect people with navigators and with agencies, primarily through CAS. Working to put together the suspended license court, which lasted from 2017 till 2020, it ended right before COVID began, was a tremendous personal accomplishment because there was a problem that was identified, and the sheer volume of people who we were able to help one-on-one, be able to have conversations and identify the problem of people having their privilege to drive suspended and being able to reinstate that privilege and really change their lives through it was life-changing for me also. We had a tremendous success rate, and again, we learned how to provide justice to thousands of people in that time. It was a wonderful, wonderful program. Professionally, my accomplishments, I've been married for 11 years. I have a wonderful wife, and I have a fantastic 2-year-old son. Personally, there is nothing that gives me more joy and makes me more proud and accomplished than seeing some of the things that he does as a 2-year-old. I know they're small things, but seeing him climb up on couches, and now he can say his own name and identify mommy and daddy, just makes me more ecstatic than anything I can think of.
Councilman Waring.
Thank you. What types of cases are the most difficult for you to rule on, and why?
I'm having trouble with this button. I apologize, Councilman. Okay. Oh, I can let it go now? Okay. Thank you. Cases I would have... You know, what I will do as a judge is make sure that I am giving as much opportunities as I can to every person involved in the court. That involves victims, that's witnesses, and that's people charged with a crime. And take in as much information as I can and execute my duties as a judge to rule on cases impartially, but do that in a way that's still, again, as personal as I can, to find the information and come to the appropriate legal conclusion, and do so impartially, and do so without outside influence. If I can do that, you know, the personal connection is something that, like I said, any undue influence isn't something I can take in as a judge. But being able to find out as much information as I can is how hopefully I will address any case that I can. The bench in Phoenix, my colleagues are all incredibly accomplished and people who I would trust to rely on and ask questions of to make sure that even those difficult decisions, even the ones where I may have questions legally about, are people whose counsel I trust, and I can get the proper information and make sure that I have the courage and take the time to make sure that my judgments are correct, both in law and as far as delivering justice. Thank you.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Chairwoman. My question is simple. What upsets you, and what do you do to calm down?
Councilman Garcia, thank you very much for your question. I can tell you what I do to calm down. I do mindfulness exercises. But something I've done this morning, obviously this is an important hearing for me. I love listening to loud music and singing along. It's something that I do to make sure that I can detach and process what I need to and go in with a clear mind. When it's always difficult as a judge, or right now as an attorney, I work in the public defender's office, to communicate with somebody who for whatever reason, the lines of communication just aren't connecting, and what I say may not be getting through. It gives me frustration, but at the same time, I do my best to give those people latitude and the understanding that court's a foreign place and a scary place for a lot of people. People are unfamiliar with it. As attorneys, judges, court staff, we're paid to be there, but nobody else is there by choice. Whether it be people who were injured and harmed, whether it be people who were there by subpoena, people who were there because they were charged with a crime. It's a scary, scary place. And for me to be able to detach, to use the exercises that I can to calm down and make sure that I do that between hearing every single person I see, because I don't want to carry the baggage and the weight of what happened with a prior person who comes before me to affect any other decision I make. So I'm going to use the mindfulness, breathing exercises, and whatever I can to be able to detach, not have any outside influence affect my decision making, and be able to give every person the respect and the humanity and the dignity they deserve in court, in a place that's representative of the city of Phoenix, and before me as a judge who would be the embodiment of that institution.
Thank you. You could please explain your views of the role of the municipal court. When defendants leave the court, how should their experience have impacted them?
Sure. Madam Chair, thank you. So the Phoenix Municipal Court is an institution. I know the court believes that the institution doesn't end at the walls of the court. The court is a part of the community. It is of the community. It's not necessarily an agency that serves it. So from my personal background, as the first generation son of a refugee from Cuba, as somebody who speaks Spanish, as somebody who's Jewish, I understand how much it's important that people, especially people who feel marginalized, people who may feel like they're outsiders, and come to court, and they may be unfamiliar with the process, but come in and are given the information and the respect and the time that they need, that when they leave, they feel like the court has legitimacy, that they feel that the court has integrity, that again, it is part of their community. It's not just this outside agency, this monolith that's there in downtown Phoenix, that it is Phoenix. It is part of Phoenix, and part of the city they either live in or pay taxes in, but are a part of also.
Thank you so much for your answers and for being here today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And our next candidate, you're dismissed. We'll go to our next candidate, Michelle Gamez.
Madam Chair, we'll just give our candidates a couple minutes to switch places.
Yes, ma'am, because the other candidates are sequestered, so I appreciate that. Thank you for the reminder. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. If you just state your name for the record.
Morning, Madam Chair O'Brien and members of the Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee. My name is Michelle Gamez.
Wonderful. We're going to start with Councilwoman Ansari.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. My question is around personal and professional accomplishments. So we know that being a judge requires maturity and wisdom. So I was hoping you could tell us what you've done both personally and professionally that has prepared you to become a municipal court judge.
What I've done professionally to prepare to be a municipal court judge has been to serve on the Arizona Supreme Court Committee on the impact of domestic violence in the courts. I served on that committee for 5 years. While being on that committee, we revamped a portion of the bench book dealing with domestic violence cases, and we also dealt with RPOP, which is the rules on protective orders and procedure. As far as personally, I'm an athlete. I've hiked the Grand Canyon rim to rim. I love hiking. I've also helped various members of my family during tough times. I raised my younger brother, who's 14 years my junior. He was in high school and I was in law school. I've also helped my mother for the past 15 and a half years after she suffered a serious stroke. I personally moved her from Nevada back to Arizona at my expense and put her in my home until she could once again be independent. Thank you.
Councilman Waring.
Thank you. What types of cases would be most difficult for you to rule on, and why?
Well, I've done almost every kind of case that there is, being a prosecutor, from prostitution to shoplifting, you name it, domestic violence. And I don't really think I would have an issue ruling on anything because I've done them all. I've done jury trials, I've done traffic court, I've done bankruptcy, I've done homeowners associations, you name it, I've pretty much done it. I've appeared in every forum just about in the state of Arizona, even at the Motor Vehicle Hearing Office, the Office of Administrative Hearings, and for the last 16 and a half years, I've appeared at the City of Phoenix Municipal Court. I wouldn't have any issues making a decision. I work independently as a prosecutor. I have lots of discretion, and as a judge, I would have independence and discretion in making decisions.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you. What upsets you, and what do you do to calm down?
Well, what upsets me is to see injustice. And sometimes I have to go hike, take a recess, go talk to a friend, colleague, pray. There are lots of things that one can do to stay calm, cool, and professional. As a lawyer, we must be professional. There is decorum in the court. But as a prosecutor, I have advocated for many victims of crime. I am able to many times convince them to come to court because many times they don't want to come to court. They don't want to participate. And it's not because they don't want to have justice. They're afraid. They are clearly afraid of retaliation. They're afraid of losing their home. They're afraid of being deported. They're afraid of so many other things that I have to have a nice conversation with them to convince them to come. I was nominated by the Arizona Prosecuting Attorneys Advisory Council for victim advocacy. I have an ability to speak to people to get them to understand why they're needed and how they can put a stop and stand up for themselves by coming to court and having their voice heard, even if I am advocating on their behalf or having someone else walk them through the steps to get a protective order.
Thank you. So could you please explain your views regarding the role of the municipal court? When defendants leave the court, how should their experience impact them?
When individuals leave the municipal court, I would like them to feel like they've been treated fairly, with dignity and respect, that they've had the opportunity to be heard, that they were given a fair chance when they appeared. And, you know, that could be a witness, that could be a police officer, that could be a victim. And that would definitely include the defendant because they have many, many rights. And I deal with many pro se individuals every single day when they come to the arraignment court to resolve their matter. I explain to them, first of all, that I do not represent them, that I represent the state, and that anything that they say to me can be held against them. But I also ask them, if you're not represented, do you want to talk to me? And let me tell you what the offer would be. I will explain to them the range of penalties for each type of misdemeanor that they might be charged with. If they need an interpreter, I make sure that they have one. And I want them to know that if they are signing a waiver of counsel form, that they are doing so knowingly and voluntarily and intelligently, because I don't want them to have any adverse consequences. And I will also advise them that if you are not a citizen of the United States, that signing a plea agreement and a waiver of counsel could have immigration consequences. So if you want to make a phone call, or if you want to continue this matter so that you can go talk to an immigration attorney, sometimes I will walk them over to the court-appointed attorney sitting on the other side of the courtroom and say, this person would like to talk to you. I strive to be fair in everything that I do, not just in making an offer and trying to get the big G for a guilty or a conviction. My job as a minister of justice and an officer of the court is to ensure that justice is done. And so I don't want to pull a fast one on anyone. My father is a Mexican national from Bamoa, Sinaloa, Mexico, and so I understand what immigration consequences can entail. So they would walk away feeling like they are informed.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being with us today and for answering our questions.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Absolutely. Our next candidate is Heidi Gilbert, and again, it'll take a couple minutes for this transition, so.
Chairwoman took a break, so I'm waiting for her.
Thank you. Welcome, Heidi Gilbert. We will start with questions. You'll have 2 minutes for each answer. Councilman Waring?
Did you just say we're doing them in different order?
Sorry, you're right, Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you. So being a judge obviously requires maturity and wisdom. Please tell us what you have done both personally and professionally that has prepared you to become a municipal court judge.
Good morning, Chairwoman O'Brien and members of the subcommittee. My name is Heidi Gilbert. I think my entire career has kind of built up to this moment. I've had people ask me over the years, you know, when are you going back to the court? When are you coming back to the prosecutor's office? And I had to really come to a place where, am I ready to give up being an advocate? And it took a long time, I think, to get to that place. I think it also took me reflecting upon, do I have enough experience as a lawyer? Do I have enough experience and as the maturity to sit on the bench and make these kinds of decisions? And so it wasn't any one thing, it's just one building block to the next. Do I think I could have done this job 5 years ago and been a good judge? I think so. Am I going to be a better one now because I waited an extra 5 years to do it? I think absolutely. I think all of us, in the post-pandemic world, I'm hoping that people took the time to kind of reflect upon their choices. And are you having the career that you want? Are you contributing in the way that you want? Are you doing things in a meaningful way? So I really tried to do that soul searching. I think we've all done that during the pandemic. I had a milestone birthday that kind of kicked off the pandemic. So I think during that time, but I think it's one experience building upon the next. I think being a lawyer gives you the opportunities to look at things in an objective way, look at it from all sides. I've had the benefit working at the city of challenging projects, engaging projects, again, especially trying to keep our workforce going during the pandemic. So I think it isn't any one thing. It's just one thing building on the next. But for me, it was reflecting on my legal career and really hitting my 20 years as a lawyer and looking back and saying, am I ready for this? So for me, Councilwoman Ansari, isn't any one thing. It's a number of things over my career.
Thank you.
Councilman Waring.
Thank you. What type of case would be most difficult for you to rule on and why?
Without reservation, hesitation, domestic violence. I think those are perhaps the most personal. It's usually dealing with either, it's a family member or an intimate partner. It's not knowing what's going to happen when those people leave the courtroom. Trying to get a better understanding of what happened before they came in through the door. I think that's just constant worry. It's constant danger for some of the people that are involved in that. And working as a prosecutor, you get some exposure to that, and I excuse me, had that in the 4 years. It really wasn't until my time working with the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team and listening to victims, listening to their families, listening to defense attorneys, listening to judges, listening to our law enforcement professionals, of just how precarious those situations are and the things that those men and women who are in those situations do each and every day to survive. So I think that would be the most difficult thing, looking at the facts and circumstances in front of you, but constant worry about what's going to happen when those folks walk out. And I remember as a prosecutor working with the victims' advocates, of even trying to make the arrangements to get people to court where they thought it was going to be safety, having a safe action plan getting into the court, having a safe action plan when they get out, working with the advocates at the Family Advocacy Center to make sure that there's stability. It's when people come to court for a domestic violence case, it's one of the pressure points. It alters that dynamic and that relationship and for that family potentially. So I think without question, whether it be criminal damage or the assault, it would be the domestic violence cases.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you. What upsets you and what do you do to calm down?
I think it's easier to say, that what calms me down. We all have stress. We all have pressure, Councilmember Garcia. I think the frustration is when things don't move quickly enough, or it feels like you're on the hamster wheel and it hasn't. It's the same conversation and nothing's changing. That can be very frustrating for all of us. Switching from a criminal practice into the civil world, one of the things that was frustrating is the length of time. It was great when I was a prosecutor doing a one-day trial, the two-day trial, you got the answer, there was a resolution. Civil work isn't like that. Our cases can take a very long time. So it's just a very different scorecard. And so for me, what calms me down, power tools and projects. So my spouse and I purchased a home several years ago, and we gutted it. We took it down to the studs. And so with each step of the way, literally building that back piece by piece and seeing that sense of accomplishment. So finding a project, something very tangible, very practical that I can see. Sometimes it's as easy as cleaning my garage, painting a wall, cleaning the floor, something that you can say, this is what I did, this is what I did today, project on the agenda, check the box, done, and look at what you did. It's just a very tangible way to have a success. But that for me, it's power tools and projects.
Thank you. Please explain your views regarding the role of the municipal court. When defendants leave the court, how should their experience impact them?
For me, the role of the court is to do justice. And that means different things to different people. But the role of the court is to provide a place where people can go to resolve their differences, resolve their disputes. But that place has to be an impartial and a fair tribunal. And that's important for all of us, whether it's to neighbor and neighbor, or intimate partner and intimate partner. Even the court's there to, is the government going too far? It's there to maintain the balances, it's one of the checks and balances between the three branches of government. That's the role of the court. And it's to maintain that order. But part of that has to include giving access to the people who need it, and the people who want it. And the one thing that I learned very early on about this particular court as a prosecutor is it was the best place, and I still think this is true, and this is not a disrespect to other courts that we have in the Valley. It was such a great place to keep people from spiraling deeper into trouble, and whether that be the defendant or whether that be the other people that are part of that, we have the resources to help them. We have the ability to help them overcome a substance abuse issue, the ability to maybe find housing. Human Services is partnering with the court to make sure that people know that the resources are available. But the most important thing, I think, when anybody walks out of that courtroom, especially the defendant, to me it comes down to, and Don Logan, our EOD director, says this often, and it's Maya Angelou. People don't remember what you said. People don't remember what you did. They remember the way you make them feel. He says that to us often to remind us people need to be heard. They need to be treated with respect and the dignity that they deserve when they're in front of you. And when they walk away, they need to know that they had a fair shake with you, that not just that you listened, but they were heard.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Utica Lang.
Good morning, Madam Chairperson and council members. My name is Utica Lang, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. You'll be asked a question by each member. You'll have 2 minutes to respond, and we will start with Councilman Waring. I did again. I don't know why. I'm sorry. I know. But do you know how many times I looked past her earlier today? Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you so much for being here. Being a judge requires maturity and wisdom, so we'd like to know what personal and professional accomplishments you feel have best prepared you to become a municipal court judge.
I currently sit on the bench for Maricopa County Superior Court, and I have been on the bench for 9 years. In that 9 years, I've had 3 assignments. I've been with the juvenile court. I did that for 4 years. I was with the initial appearance for 2 years, and I currently have a family court assignment. I'm in my 4th year of that, and I have enjoyed every minute of it. I have learned that the only people really wanting to be there are the staff and me. Everybody else is nervous to be there. They are there because they were ordered to be there, or that something was wrong and they had to be there. And so one of the things that I try to do is make sure that the people that are in front of me feel welcomed and feel as at ease as I do when I'm in there. How I do that is offering a smile. A smile goes a long way. Making sure that they understand that I understand their predicament. Applying the law fairly. Treating them with respect and dignity, everyone, not just victims, not just defendants, everyone from litigants to staff members, recognizing that it is a hard thing for them to be there and appreciating that they are there with me. I think that I have developed that over the last 9 years. I also was with the Public Defender's Office for more than a decade and honed that skill there as well, dealing with defendants who obviously don't want to be with me, not because of anything that I've done, but because of the situation that they find themselves in. I think that experience, that plus what I do now, has led me to a place of being able to be a judicial officer.
All right, now Councilman Waring's turn.
What types of cases would be most difficult for you to rule on, and why?
The most difficult would be sort of what I do now. I know that City of Phoenix does orders of protections. I do those in my current assignment. Those are difficult because, for so many reasons. One, because a lot of the accusations are domestic violence. And I have a victim here who is probably recently traumatized, and I don't want to re-traumatize that person. But I do still have to ask questions and find out why they're in front of me. It becomes difficult when I don't give them everything that they want, meaning they may have suffered some domestic violence incident, but the children may not have. And oftentimes they will request the children to be put on the order, and I have to deliver to them that the child will not be. But we also have the ability to put some safeguards in place for the children. That's a difficult thing to do because, again, I don't want to re-victimize this person in front of me, but I also have to make sure that I'm following the law and what I'm charged to do. And so that can be a little bit contentious because they're not getting everything they want. But if I take the time to explain to them why I'm making the decision I'm making, the rules that I have to follow, the laws that govern orders of protection and why they're issued, we often are able to work through it, but that is a difficult situation to be in.
Councilmember Garcia.
What upsets you and what do you do to calm down?
I'm sorry, say that
What
again?
upsets you and what do you do to calm down? Yeah.
Do you mean professionally or personally? All right. Everything. No. I am very close to my family. So when my family is injured, that's upsetting for me. Mostly it's when my daughter, who's 13 and is in middle school, and I don't know if any of you have children or have had to deal with middle school girls, but they can be mean. 7th grade was really hard for her. She came home a lot upset, and my instinct is to go to the school and confront whatever 7th grade girl made her upset today. I couldn't do that, obviously. So she and I learned some techniques together. Breathing is the first thing. Teaching her and learning through these experiences with her, breathing and taking a beat and trying to recognize like what might be motivating that other person to come at her and how can she address it without breaking down, without lashing out. She's also a competitive dancer, so dancing helps. And I am also a dancer. I'm not competitive, not at this age, but I am taking a dance class at her studio. That definitely helps. It's a hip-hop class. So if something upsets me on Monday, I am dancing my heart out on Tuesday, and that has definitely helped. So I think that's it.
Thank you so much. Please explain your views regarding the role of the municipal court. When defendants leave the court, how should their experience impact them?
I think that it needs to be positive. And the outcome might not be positive. because they are the defendant. But when they come into the courtroom, when they are in front of me, they at least need to feel like they have been treated with dignity, fairness, and respect, as I have mentioned earlier. Additionally, they need to understand that they have been heard. When I was a defense attorney, that was a big concern for them. Is this person that I'm in front of, are they going to hear me? And are they going to understand me? Can they relate to me? So I want any defendant in front of me to feel that, to walk out of the courtroom, regardless of what the result was, to walk out of the courtroom feeling heard, feeling understood, and maybe they are sentenced to something that they don't want to be, but they will at least have felt respected. They will have at least feel seen, which was a complaint that I got as an attorney. Why didn't that judge ask me any questions, for example? That judge doesn't even know me, doesn't know my story. I want them to understand that I do. And I do that by preparing. I do it now by preparing for every file, every case that's in front of me, addressing the person by their name. I was always impressed with the judges that I was in front of when they would address my client by their name, not defendant, not you, but Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so. I do it now on the bench. As I mentioned, I have a family court assignment. I don't address them as mother, father. I say Miss So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so. I have a very difficult first name, so I'm always trying to make sure that I get their names right, and that goes a long way. When I heard you guys say my name, you said Utica. I was so pleased by that. It goes a long way.
Well, thank you so much for your answers this morning and for spending time with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Is that it?
That is all.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
So our next candidate is Lynn Pusino.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chairwoman and council members.
Good morning. Thank you for being with us. I only have 2 more chances to get this right, so we'll start with Councilwoman Ansari. You'll be asked a question by each candidate or by each council member and have 2 minutes to respond.
Thank you so much for being here. Being a judge requires maturity and wisdom. Can you please tell us about some of your personal and professional accomplishments that you think have best prepared you to serve as a municipal court judge?
Thank you. That's correct. It does require those attributes. I think personally, being a mother calls for one to be mature and wise. Being a parent is probably the most challenging job on the planet, and yet the most rewarding. A parent has to put aside their emotions sometimes, and also has to be a teacher, a provider, a caretaker, and sometimes a psychologist or a friend. So that requires a great deal of wisdom and maturity. One has to put their children before themselves, and that's very difficult. Professionally speaking, I would say that representing individuals who had either developmental disabilities or emotional difficulties, that requires some skill in communicating with them and being able to make them aware of the rule of law and the things they need to know, and also be aware that those individuals need to have some confidence in you, and you have to build trust with them. So I would say that those two experiences, motherhood and representing people that had some disadvantages psychologically or cognitively, those two things I think are examples of needing to have a high level of maturity and wisdom in order to fulfill those tasks.
Councilman Waring.
Thank you. What type of case would be the most difficult for you to rule on, and why?
Great question. I would say that the case where the rule of law does not necessarily result in the outcome that as I would want to see as a human being, those pose the most difficult cases to rule on, because that really tests your commitment to your role as a judge. There are times in my work that I've had to make decisions where I wasn't happy on an emotional level with the outcome, and we're all human beings, and those are the most difficult cases. But I think the community counts on a judge to apply the rule of law, regardless of how the outcome may, how it may carry out, and how it may look, because the rule of law is what everybody's really depending upon when you put on a robe, when you are a judge. So I would say those are the most difficult cases, and I don't think that role is for everyone. I think many times people have to ask themselves, and I've had to ask myself, and I think the answer is yes, but a judicial officer is really required to be committed to the rule of law and applying the facts, regardless of the other outcome that may follow from that. So we can't solve all social problems, but we can and be protected by the rule of law. So those can be the most difficult.
Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you. What upsets you, and what do you do to calm down?
What upsets me? I would say I do not like to see the vulnerable exploited, whether it's the elderly, children, child abuse. Those types of things are, I think, disturbing to any human being. But what I do on a personal level, I guess, to calm down would probably be, I try to use from the standpoint of in my personal life, I'm somewhat athletic. I'm a swimmer. I like to take walks and enjoy the outdoors. So that's like my personal way to calm down when I'm dealing with situations that I think are disturbing. And in my professional life, I take great refuge in the power of reason being something to use when the situation is disturbing or out of hand. I've just come to realize that it is a refuge, and that's why I enjoy the idea of and the work in applying the law to conflict and difficult situations. So from a professional standpoint, if something is disturbing, whether it's the way a party is perhaps behaving or the facts or whatnot, staying focused on the applying the rule of law and the use of reason has been a mental discipline, but it's become very useful in the stressful situations that my work has taken me.
Last but not least, please explain your views regarding the role of the municipal court. When defendants leave the court, how should their experience impact them?
I see the role of the municipal court as the image of justice for a vast number of people, the community at large, because many more people encounter the municipal court than other courts. It is the court of the people that most people will encounter in their lifetimes, one time or another. It is the face of justice, really. So I think that a defendant that leaves the court, even a victim that leaves the court. Anyone who is involved with the justice system should walk away with a sense that here the rule of law is king. Here the rule of law is what matters. And many things can happen where people are emotional and circumstances that give rise to either a case or people advocating for one position or another can be very hotly debated and conflict, but all of those emotions have to be put aside, and it is basically a sanctuary of justice, and people need that in a community to feel safe. So I see the municipal court as the one that most people encounter and the one that can provide a community with a sense of stability, order, confidence in their government, and a sense of justice.
Thank you so much for your answers and for being with us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And our last candidate is Scott Silva.
Madam Chair, fellow council members, thank you for this opportunity.
Good morning, sir. We're just going to wait for Councilmember Garcia to return, and then we will begin.
Thank you.
Excellent. So you'll be asked a question by each council member. You'll have 2 minutes to respond, and we're going to start with Councilwoman Ansari.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman. Thank you for being here. Being a judge requires maturity and wisdom. What are the professional and personal accomplishments that you feel have best prepared you to serve as a municipal court judge?
So I've been a licensed attorney in the state of Arizona for 25 years. For 21 years of that, I've owned the Silva Law Firm, which is a law firm in Arizona that represents clients in criminal cases, in civil cases. It also provides public defender services and mental health services throughout Maricopa County. I have represented clients in over 7,000 cases. Additionally, I've had the opportunity to serve as a judge pro tem in the Maricopa County Superior Court for 4 years, where I presided over hundreds of felony cases. I currently serve as a judge pro tem in the Mesa Municipal Court and the El Mirage Municipal Court, where I presided over hundreds of cases. I have had a public defender services contract with the Phoenix Municipal Court for the last 21 consecutive years, where I provide services to indigent people and people with mental health issues. In terms of wisdom, that comes from, I believe, practical experience. And I have an enormous amount of practical experience in representing people in the criminal justice system in a wide variety of cases. I've tried capital murder cases, first-degree murder cases, major felony cases. There isn't a criminal case that I have not handled or have not seen. So I have that practical perspective that I bring with me every time I sit on the bench to make decisions that I'm able to use as points of reference with my experience in order to make better decisions. So I think there's no substitute for practical experience when you're talking about problem solving and decision making.
Councilman Waring.
What type of case would be most difficult for you to rule on, and why?
Well, I can tell you that when I've sat as a judge and also talking to other judges and also appearing in front of other judges in hundreds and hundreds of trials, it's my opinion that the most difficult case is not a particular type of case. It's not necessarily a particular type of charge. But the most difficult type of case is one where you have one person claiming that something happened, and you have another person claiming that it didn't. And there aren't any independent witnesses. There isn't any independent evidence other than one person's word against another. That puts a judge in a position of being a juror and having to make a decision. The judge has to draw upon their life experiences, their practical experiences, in order to judge the credibility of one witness over another. There isn't a particular law or statute that a judge can go to say this is how I should rule. The judge has to apply the relevant burden of proof to that particular case, but it's difficult. Those are very difficult cases when you have one person saying one thing and another person saying something else, and you have to determine the truth of the matter. And that takes common sense, it takes an objectivity, and it takes the ability to weigh credibility. And that's every judge I've ever talked to has told me those are the most difficult decisions to make is in those kind of cases.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Garcia.
So what upsets you, and what do you do to calm down?
Well, I mean, I have 5 young children. Their ages are 9 to 16. Anybody who's been a parent at home, that can try your patience. Obviously, in my work environment, I deal with a lot of people with special needs, a lot of people that have mental health issues, people that often suffer from disorders that make it difficult for them to communicate with people in a positive way. So it's often stressful and upsetting when I have people that are being aggressive towards me, that are insulting me in court. That's part of the job. What I do is I in my family we like outdoor activities. I love the water. I love the ocean. I enjoy boating. So I'll take my boat with my kids out to the various lakes around Maricopa County. I like to fish. We like to hike. We like to camp. That's the most relaxing thing for me. That's how I relieve stress, is just spending time with my family, but also doing something productive, keeping myself busy. That's the best relief I can get for anxiety.
Please explain your views regarding the role of the municipal court. When defendants leave the court, how should their experience impact them?
So first, in terms of the Phoenix Municipal Court, I mean, the mission of the Phoenix Municipal Court is to make sure that everybody has equal access to justice. It's to make sure everybody is treated professionally and impartially. It's to make sure that every case is resolved in a timely and fair manner. That's the mission of the Phoenix Court. That's also the mission that every judge that sits in Phoenix Municipal Court should have in mind when they carry out their duties. The most important duty of a judge, above all else, is to promote public confidence in the judiciary as an independent and impartial branch of government. And the way judges do that is by carrying out their duties, by being diligent with the people that come into their courtroom, giving them an opportunity to be heard on time. If their hearings are set at 8:30, people want to be able to know that they're going to be heard at 8:30. And that's just a human an issue that people expect that. And so the judges need to do that. There's the objectivity portion of a judge's duties. And that is that people, when they go into the court in Phoenix, need to feel like the judge is going to be objective, that the judge is going to be impartial, that a judge is going to apply the law as written in a rational manner, in a reasonable manner to the facts of a case. The judge doesn't get to make up the law. The judge doesn't get to decide what the law should be. The judge applies the law in an objective manner. But they do it impartially, and everybody that goes into the court needs to know that they are going to be treated equally, regardless of their individual situations or socioeconomic situation. And the judge needs to have a good temperament. He has to treat everyone that goes into court with politeness, professionalism, dignity, even if those are not the kind of things that the people are giving back to the judge. It's the judge's job to be above that. And if a judge does those things, then a judge fulfills the court's mission.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you being with us here this morning, and thank you for your answers.
Sure. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we do have several members of the public signed up for comment on this item.
Okay, then we will move to public comments.
Our first virtual speaker is Christopher Califano, followed by Kimberly Anderson. He's not on. Christopher is not on the line. Our next speaker is. Oh, you. Go right ahead, sir.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Chris Califano. I'm a attorney in Arizona. I'm here to speak on behalf of Alex Benezra, who's a judicial applicant. I've been a lawyer for 15 years in Arizona approximately, and I've had a contract to do indigent defense work in the City of Phoenix Municipal Court for approximately 11 years. And without any compunction or reservation, I recommend Alex Benezra. Alex and I have known each other for about the same amount of time, about 10 years, and I've seen him in court litigating cases, speaking with judges, speaking with subordinates, speaking with members of the community, speaking with prosecutors. I've seen him handle clients with profound mental health issues who are very trying to communicate with, and he does so in each of those situations with grace, with candor, with humility, and with a tremendous amount of what I feel is intelligence and competence. And he has that reputation, and it's well earned. From a leadership perspective, I've seen Alex chair and be the president of Thurgood Marshals in a Court, which is a continuing legal education seminar that's been run by Alex for most of the last 5 to 6 years, in which he volunteers to help promote civility among lawyers who, in all candor, could use more of those types of lessons. And so Alex, in my opinion, has got he's one of those people who always is willing to stay late and put in the hard work. And I think that he embodies what the City of Phoenix Municipal Court is, which is a body of what I believe to be some of the state's best judges. And I practice law in every court in this state. And so I think that Alex has got those abilities, and he's showcased them many times, and I've never seen an absence of that. I've never seen him. Sorry, I'll step down, but I'll just finish by saying thank you, and I do believe Alex would be an excellent candidate for judge.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker.
Our next speaker, Madam Chair, is Kimberly Anderson, followed by John Reeks.
Thank you. My name is Kimberly Anderson. I'm here to speak on behalf of Scott Silva. I've been a limited jurisdiction prosecutor for 24 years, the last 17 with the City of Chandler, where I've had the pleasure of working with Mr. Silva the previous 10 years. While I have personally observed Mr. Silva to be an extremely well-versed in the law, very well organized, and highly respected by both our office, the City Prosecutor Office, and the court, it is the manner in which he treats every person that he comes in contact with that I have been most impressed with and has compelled me to come and speak before you today. Mr. Silva is, without fail, day in and day out, pleasant, very well-spoken, and patient. It is these attributes that I find most compelling, this combination of his legal knowledge, caseload management, and people skills that I believe will make him a welcome addition to any judicial bench. I wholeheartedly recommend him. Thank you for allowing me to come speak today.
Thank you for your comments. Our next speaker.
Our next speaker, Madam Chair, is John Riggs, followed by Stephanie Ann Bright.
Good morning. My name is John Riggs. I am a Master of Social Work student, and I've been an intern at the Public Defender's Office, a social work intern. I'm speaking on behalf of Mr. Silva. I've been working with Mr. Silva for going on 9 months. I learned a term recently. It was judicial temperament, and after looking up the definition of that and what it means, I think that describes Scott perfectly. Going into work every week and seeing him work with the clients that we deal with is just outstanding and amazing. He's an inspiration to me, not only professionally as a social worker, but also personally, just wanting to have that feng shui that he has and how he works, that calming presence. It's quite amazing to see. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your comments.
Our next speaker is Stephanie Ann Bright, followed by Amy Ellington.
Good morning. My name is Stephanie Airbright. I am the court-appointed attorney for the City of Phoenix Behavioral Health Court. I work with Scott and have worked with him every Wednesday all day for the last 5 years. And I wrote you guys a letter too, so I don't want to just reiterate everything I wrote. But what everyone is saying about him is right on point. We have clients who, all my clients are developmentally disabled, have serious mental illness, have traumatic brain injuries. They are the people on the corner screaming at themselves, dirty, homeless, that most people don't even want to look at. They just want to ignore and pretend they don't exist. Every Wednesday, Scott Silva is early, dressed in his, three-piece suit usually, giving every single person the dedication and the time that they deserve, and to ensure that they receive justice too, and to ensure that they get treatment, medication, things that they need. And he has done this. We have probably 70 clients every week. He has done this and been there pretty much every single Wednesday for the last 5 years. As John mentioned, if you look up the definition of judicial temperament, that is Scott Silva. He may be humble and not, say that much about himself, but he has that personality to calmly address not only the clients, the case managers, the judges. We have people observing pretty much every Wednesday. He has an enormous amount of things going on. It's a very fast-paced course. I have never seen him even get flustered, let alone lose his temper. I do know that he has healthy outlets for when he is stressed, because, dealing with all that after a while weighs on you. And as he mentioned, he has his 5 kids and his family that he works with. I would highly recommend Scott Silva for this judicial appointment.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Amy Ellingson, followed by Joe Ramiro Shanahan.
Good morning, council members. My name is Amy Ellingson. I am an attorney here in Phoenix. I practice primarily in Superior Court, and I am here to recommend Michelle Gamas. So Michelle and I have worked together for several years. She's a prosecutor. I'm a defense attorney. We work on Arizona Women Lawyers Association steering committee together. And I have seen Michelle in the last several years be very even-keeled, logical. She's a natural mentor and leader. She's an asset to our group. I also know Michelle from church. We just happened to run into each other at church. And we've had a friendship for a couple of years now. She has a kind heart. She cares about her community. She's a public servant. As she spoke here today, you saw her and her temperament, which is perfect for a judicial office. She's very experienced, as we all heard her say today too, in the city of Phoenix, and I would recommend Michelle Gamas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Joe Ramiro Shanahan, followed by Jessica Sanchez.
Is Joe with us?
It appears, Madam Chair, Joe is not here. Our next speaker is Jessica Sanchez, followed by Jacqueline Molina. Madam Chair, it appears Jessica is not here. Our next speaker is Jacqueline Molina, followed by Jason Max.
Good morning, council members. My name is Jacqueline Molina. I am here on behalf of Utica Lang. What I do want to tell you about my experience with her is that I've known her mainly professionally. I have been a prosecutor for the county for 16 years now. For the first 8 years of my career, I was in downtown adult felony trials, and the subsequent 8 years, I've been a juvenile prosecutor. So I have known her mainly first as opposing defense counsel in adult court, and then she was on the bench when I arrived at the juvenile, at my juvenile assignment. I think what's important to note about a judicial officer is I think it's really important that that judicial officer listens. As a prosecutor, I don't always feel like I get that opportunity, especially in front of a judicial officer who may have had previous defense experience. I can tell you that when I appeared in her courtroom, I felt like I was heard, I was listened to, and we may not have always agreed, but I felt that she applied the law, that she did it carefully, that she did it in full consideration of both sides. That is really important as a judicial officer, and I would ask the council members to consider that. In addition to that, I also started some programs with my office as an outreach program for juveniles at risk, just members of our community that needed that help or extra guidance. I think it's important for the council members to know that Utica isn't just a lawyer in our community, but she is a member of this community and she cares about it. She came and spoke to the juveniles that I was speaking to and genuinely cared for the community and those juveniles. So I would just ask the members to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Our next speaker is Jason Max, followed by Caleb Scott.
Thank you to the council. My name is Jason Max. I'm a Phoenix native. I'm old enough to say I went to Phoenix Inferno games as a kid. I don't know if that means anything to someone, but I tell you that because I'm not just here to recommend Judge Lang. I really love this city. My dad was a city employee for 30 years. It's given me everything I've ever really had in my life. Judge Lang is an amazing judicial officer. Real quick, to give you a sense, the timer didn't start, so good for me. What we do in juvenile, it's kind of like MASH. You don't know how many cases you're going to get. Sometimes there might be 5, and sometimes there may be 15, and you don't know until an hour before it starts. Oh, and incidentally, by the way, Judge Jones over there, they just called off sick, so we're going to add to you, Judge Lang, another 5 or 6 cases. And by the way, you better be done by 5, and we're starting at 1, because we're not going to pay overtime to staff. Good luck with those 20 cases. She got them done consistently, promptly, and professionally. And a lot of judges really struggle with that. She didn't. The second most important thing I'd like to stress real quick is demeanor. The person you saw, that's who she is. That's genuinely who she is. It amazes me, having been in front of so many judges, how many struggle with, like, be pleasant, be nice. It's kind of like the basics. She is respectful to everyone. And even when things don't go your way, you can disagree about the law. You know, some people think it's this, some people think it's that. You have disagreements. The main thing is be respectful. And I think that's what you've heard, my colleague, Ms. Molina, say. That's really who she is. And she would be a boon to this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Caleb Scott, followed by Martha Winkler. It appears Caleb's not here. Next speaker is Martha Winkler, followed by Terry Esparza. Martha, it appears not here. Our next speaker is Terry Esparza.
Short. Hello, I'm here to speak on behalf of Commissioner Utica Lang. I have been blessed to be her judicial assistant for the last 3 years, and I just wanted to come in here and let you know some of my experiences with her. I truly believe that the judicial officer is very important, of course, but staff is also important. We deal with the litigants, we talk to the parties, and she demands that they receive nothing but respect. I don't think she would have a problem telling me if I did something wrong or somebody else. She wants them treated with respect from the moment they come into the courthouse, whether they're filing, they have questions, and she wants everybody to have a good experience. And I believe that the attitude of a division trickles down from the top. I've seen her treat everybody with respect, from maintenance to other JOs. You'd be surprised how many times you can get into an elevator with a judge and they don't recognize you, they don't, acknowledge you. She acknowledges everybody. I've also been blessed to see her on the bench, and let me tell you, I believe every week I tell her, Commissioner, I don't know how you kept your cool. And she always tells me that's my job. My job is to be impartial. My job is to keep my cool. She says I forget about it when I go home, but I just do my job. And it blows me away every day. I don't think I could work for anybody better. And I think that the city of Phoenix, she will be an asset, and you'd be lucky to have her. Honestly, I would miss her, but you would be definitely lucky to have her. Just the respect and that she gives everybody. Also, when people come in and they need help, she is there. I just want to add one more thing. The other day, I told her that she never rejects a deferral when people need a waiver for fees, and she told me, just because you can't afford it does not mean you should not be allowed help from the court. And I think that will be something that will always stick with me. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, that was all the people registered on this item, this week on this item.
We didn't have anybody virtually for this item. Or telephonically. We got them. Okay, thank you. Thank you again to all the candidates and all of the speakers this morning. I will now entertain a motion to enter into executive session for subcommittee deliberations.
I move that the Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee enter into executive session pursuant to ARS Section 38-431.03A1 and A3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And all those opposed say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, and we will now convene into executive session. The subcommittee is in recess, and we will reconvene after the executive session concludes. We'll call the meeting back to order at 12:16. I move that the Public Safety and Justice Subcommittee recommend that City Council appoint Alexander Benezra and Heidi Gilbert as judges of the Phoenix Municipal Court, each for a 4-year term that would end on January 17th, 2026. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously. Congratulations to those candidates for being moving forward. Thank you to everyone who applied and spent time with us today. The next item on my agenda, that's what happens. We have any agenda items, and to that point, I do want to say that I did receive a memo from Councilwoman Ansari about the Phoenix crisis discussion, and I have began that discussion with our city manager and assistant city manager earlier in the year, and we do have slated for the October meeting to discuss what is going on with our fire department in the city of Phoenix. In addition, we had a presentation yesterday, a policy presentation about changes that have been made in the Phoenix Police Department policies, and several council members, particularly Councilmember Garcia, had asked for some items related to our CAP program, as well as Councilwoman Ansari. So we'll be discussing those items and how we do our best to bring those back. I do want to just, I guess, warn or inform, I'm not sure what's the best term, my fellow subcommittee members, that I've tried to do a very good job of keeping our meetings to 2 hours, except for when we have judicial appointments. But I will say that given the different items we have coming up, we could see some of our meetings going a little bit longer in the future. We have a lot of work to be done. I don't like having meetings or agenda items just to have them, but we will have some substantial items to talk about in the future. And hope that calendars can plan accordingly. Are there any other agenda item requests for today? All right, seeing none, we can be adjourned at 12:19. Thank you, everybody.
Say, no one is a stranger here, and new explorers are always welcome. We've only touched on the many qualities that draw people and businesses to Phoenix and keep them here. From our culture of innovation and collaboration, to our booming and highly educated workforce, to a lifestyle that's as spectacular as our views, Phoenix will continue to grow, to attract, to flourish. Like nowhere else. Join us.
Welcome to PHX